Welcome to the meeting room at Global TV Talk Show, a broadcast service of globalbusinessnews.net.
This episode from the meeting room of Global TV Talk Show is brought to you by
The Bridge School, the accredited international online private school of choice, at bridgek12.org.
Porch Light Rental and Destination Services. Reduce your renter lump sum or managed relocation costs. Visit them at porchlightrental.com.
And by airs.com. With our full range of services, we can help design and manage your international relocation. Find us at airs.com.
Primestone Partners, featuring corporate, government, and developer housing solutions, as well as senior-level advisory services. Find them at primestonepartners.com.
And by International Auto Source. We are the vehicle experts for expats, featuring all major brands of automobiles with flexible solutions and financing. On the web at intlauto.com.
Become a global player in your field.
Cross Culture to Go provides virtual support for your global business and career success.
We can help you thrive in 140 plus countries and markets.
On the web at crossculturetogo.com.
This is Ed Cohen in San Diego, California, and our special guest today is Dr. Lynn Schmidt. She's coming to us live today on July 15, 2021 at about 11 a.m. in California. And Dr. Lynn Schmidt is very well known in the field of training and thought leader in particularly women's issues with regard to leadership, but she knows so much more about this than me. Let's welcome Dr. Lynn Schmidt. Hi.
Hi, thank you. It's great to be here.
Thank you very much. I like your background there. Wow. Well, we welcome pets and animals and even spouses or partners.
They're usually pretty quiet, so I don't know what happened. They wanted to say hello.
Yeah, well, it's very human. It's very okay. So, what's your dog's name?
I have two. They're Shelties. One is Bobo. That was the one being vocal, and the other is Miko.
Yeah, and more diminutive, huh?
Yeah.
So, and a male, female?
Boys, both male, and they're brothers, actually. Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. Oh, the personality mix. We'll get into that too.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So, Dr. Schmidt, you are a well-known author. You have two books ready to go and a third one in the oven. So why don't you hold up the covers of the two books? Let our audience see. Shift into Thrive and Thriving from A to Z. Let's talk first about Shift into Thrive. Now, is this aimed at me or is it aimed at women?
Shift into Thrive is specifically aimed at women, and it's research based. So a lot of interviews were conducted, a lot of research was conducted to come up with the groundwork for the 6 strategies specifically for women. I've presented this topic to men as well, and it's not that men can't apply it, but the actual tools and processes that are in the book to help women overcome difficulty or build resilience prior to difficulty, be proactive, actually came from research with women.
Okay, so now this is geared to what age bracket?
Any age bracket. I actually taught a class at Boise State University for university, younger women going to university. I've talked to even girls in high school about it. And I've, talked to, so the age range is wide. I've presented to ages from teenagers to, women in their 70s.
Okay, so I'm a guy, of course. So I need to ask, what's so special? What's so different?
Yeah, well, women, just like with everything, it's more the issues women encounter and how we might tend to deal with them. Let's say an example is negotiation. Women often, just because of a lot of factors, how we're raised, the peer pressures, the kind of the biases. I mean, women often don't feel comfortable negotiating, but it can be a really important aspect, obviously, of getting a good job, of being able to build resilience by asking for the things that you need. And yet women don't tend, research shows women don't tend to be as comfortable with that as men. So there are many things, that's one example, but there are many things that women approach differently, that they do differently, that can get in the way of their being resilient and thriving, and get in the way and impact how they deal with difficulties. And so that's how it's different. Not that you won't when I talk about the strategies, not that you won't say, well, yeah, I do those things, but you may approach them differently, or for some reason they may be easier for you simply because you're a male. So that's why it's specific to women, not that men won't hear it and say, well, yeah, these make sense to me.
Okay, so there's so many different personality types, of course,
Mm-hmm.
but so we're going to speak generally for a minute, and feel free to zero in on anything. So I'm trying not to throw you softball questions.
Oh, that's okay. No, go for it.
Okay, here we go. No,
I'm used to it. I've worked in the technology world for a long time, so.
That's right, Micron, right?
Oh, and
Okay.
many others.
Yeah. Oh, you can't hold a job? No, I'm just joking.
Here we go.
Oh, just joking.
That's
So,
okay.
About being in a difficult position or not being comfortable within what is a give and take of negotiation. So it's a matter of what, training and the psychological nature of a negotiation, and that it's a game, but you play for real. But it's not a matter of killing the other person like James Bond might. It's a matter of, it's got to be a win-win. Now, how do we get there?
Yeah, and with women, what it's about is really not even so much training. It's almost unlearning, becoming aware. That's really what the book's all about. It's becoming aware of the things that might be getting in your way, that started happening to you before you were even born. I mean, women, girls are pink, boys are blue. Girls are dolls, boys are trucks. I could go on and on and on. And even if your parents try the best, once you get into school, there's all the peer pressure. So it really comes from biases that become, that you begin to feel that you need to behave a certain way to fit in or to be a woman per se. And so it's almost more about unlearning those sorts of things, that women should be more accommodating, women should be more nurturing, all of those examples, less than about, what are the specific skills to negotiate, because that's kind of, in my book, easy stuff. The hard stuff is unlearning what gets in your way that makes you feel like you shouldn't even try to negotiate because you'll be perceived negatively. And once again, research shows that women are perceived negatively often when they stand up and speak up for themselves, because women, there's this whole likability factor, and women are supposed to be liked, and how that's defined is being accommodating, being not questioning, not being, I call it assertive, but often women are called aggressive. And so it's really more about that and unlearning that to be able to negotiate than the skills of like getting to yes.
So I recently had a interview with a senior HR leader from within IBM in New York. And he was talking about almost the exact same thing, but it had nothing to do with male, female. It was just the workplace. Coming back from being out from COVID pandemic, and now coming back in. And he was saying almost the same words, but applied to a totally different scene, a different situation. And it was about unlearning what you did 2 years ago in the office, and you got to think differently. And it's going to be hard. And it's okay to fail or make mistakes, he said. So let's just talk about that thing for a second with regard to women who are senior in their ranking, in knowledge, and within a company structure. So we're not talking about mom and pops, although it could be applied to that. We're really talking about Fortune 1000 companies.
Mhm.
So politics and favorites and in the room, or where do you sit, or having a private meeting before the meeting so that there's certain key things, politics. I wouldn't call it backstabbing, but it's a vicious game. And personally, I don't like it. And so, because in my early days, I never won at it. So I stopped working for big companies and figured out how to sell into them. And I've been an entrepreneur because I didn't want that hassle. So I paid a price too. But this is what's going on right now. Women are leaving the corporate world. Well, for a lot of reasons, but particularly this reason. Right?
Yeah, I mean, the whole pandemic has, I mean, as you know, millions of women lost their jobs, not so much men. And now coming back, men are coming back. More men are almost, I believe they're just about equal now as to how many were out of the workforce and how many are back. There's no loss at the moment for men. Women are still, millions of women are still out. And it is for those reasons, a variety of reasons, but I mean, first off, they had to leave the workforce because of the childcare. So women are often expected not only to do the day job, if you will, and that, you know, that's not even the right way, but the outside of the home job, as well as the home job. That's changed slightly, but still research shows that overwhelmingly women are expected to do both, less so for men. So they had to leave the workforce initially in regards to the pandemic, because they had a lot of home care work to do. And so they needed to leave to do the homeschooling and all of those sorts of things. But now they aren't coming back into the workforce as quickly for a lot of reasons. And some of those are in that some have found out that working from home or finding a job where they're allowed to work from home is preferable for their style. And others are doing, I mean, even before the pandemic, there was a lot of research showing that a lot of women were leaving the workforce to go out to be entrepreneurs for those very reasons, in that like likes like. So in corporate America, even though we have far more female CEOs now than we've had ever, it's still, I think, 41 or somewhere in there. And so when you think of Fortune 500 and 41 are women who are maybe building teams of more so women, what makes it hard is, as a woman, whether you're a white woman, but especially even women of color, you're not feeling like you fit in. You can't play the game, or maybe you don't play the game as well, or you're just never going to be in that man's bathroom, you know, the men's restroom, having those conversations, right? Where supposedly a lot of the work happens, or maybe on the golf course or wherever. And with the Me Too movement, men are saying, and I'm just going to say, yeah, well, but men are saying, well, now I don't feel comfortable working alone with a woman. So there's all these factors. So I think women are leaving, and then they stayed out because of the pandemic and not coming back for a lot of reasons. But those reasons have to do with, I think, the fact that they're female.
So the kids, let's just say the kids in the house, along with at least one spouse, and there's, how much bandwidth can you have, you know? And so it's a problem. So, and it only exacerbates whatever else is going on, of course. So, and a lot of people are not successful at dealing with that. We've had psychologists on the program addressing that. One of the highest ratings of those shows.
Yeah.
So let's just focus in for a second on women who are or have been executives in a corporate structure, so we can qualify this in America. Let's just say that. And they're doers, getting things done, organizing, delegating, following up, responsible. And so they see the kids, whether it's male or female, or whether they're 4 years old or 10 years old or 12, online learning is not cutting it. I mean, some of the online learning in schools are really good. I know a couple, we've had programs with them. But I haven't had any bad ones on because I don't even want to talk to them. Well, they don't want to talk to me. But a lot of women I've seen, I've heard about, and was told that they're looking at their kids failing or just not learning anything because the instruction isn't good online. Okay, because there's no impersonal pressure. There's no collaborative learning taking place visually. So there are some online teachers who got it, and they're into TV and using this as a platform, almost like a make-believe Sesame Street or something like that. Learning in a classroom on TV. Forget about Zoom. Just call it TV. That's what it is. And once people think about that, they learn new things all of a sudden. But women are seeing that the kids aren't learning well, and they know how to teach whatever that topic is a lot better than some online teacher who doesn't know how to use it properly for her kid. Mm-hmm. And so it's almost like a social thing and a parental prerogative to jump in and homeschool, and which I can't imagine that women have ever thought about that prior to the past year or so, year and a half. So a lot of that goes into the resignation wave.
Sure, absolutely, yeah. And when you think about what it takes to build resilience and thrive, so you're thrown into a difficult situation, like, oh my gosh, I'm going to have to teach my children this. I've never done that. One of the strategies is to build your coping skills. And so how do you cope when that difficult things are thrown your way? How do you manage the negativity? What's your self-talk? How do you get through it? Another one is really about developing yourself. And so I imagine a lot of some of the women I've talked to went through some learning. They had to develop additional skills in that area to be able to build resilience to deal with, this difficult situation. So the strategies for building resilience and thriving, really are going to apply whether it's a corporate America situation or it's the pandemic itself, being, stuck at home alone, or whether it's teaching your kids, school. The strategies really would apply regardless.
So let's go back to your books for a second. In Shift into Thrive, how did you come up with that concept?
The intent was to really look into, so my dissertation, I was a mid-career returning to school person. And so I got my my PhD, my doctorate mid-career, and my study was on women and what causes them to derail, why do their careers derail? And so I looked at and focused on and interviewed women who were in Fortune 500 companies, within 3 levels of the CEO. And I really honed in on what happens, because many of the vendors or service deliverers out there who focus on career derailment were mostly focusing on, had studied men that it had happened to, or they'd gone to executives and said, think of a woman that this happened to, and you tell me why it happened. But I found very little research where women were interviewed themselves and asked, why did it happen? So it certainly was them telling me, but I think that's important to give women voice in this business. So So my dissertation came up with reasons as to why it happens. This book is to focus on, okay, how do you avoid it? Or if it does happen, because oftentimes it's not avoidable, regardless of what you do, how do you then deal with it? How do you stay resilient? How do you not get sucked into the negativity and pulled down? What I call, really going into decline. So there's thrive, there's survive, and there's decline.
Wow, that's good.
How do you not stay in decline? How do you get back to survive, which is really the status quo?
I'm going to write
get out
that
of
down.
that and back to thrive.
Okay, we're going to write this down.
It's like a graph. Okay. Think of a graph.
Okay. So
and you've got and so diversity happens, and you go down to decline. But then how do you get back up to survive where you were? Survive is really kind of maintaining the status quo, and then get out of that and back up to thrive itself.
So thrive, survive, decline.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
All right.
We interrupt this broadcast to bring you a timely announcement.
Hi, I'm Sergey Gorbatov.
I'm Angela Lane.
Together we're researchers, writers and practitioners in the field of human resources.
And we've also been multi-country, multi-assignment career expats.
We owe our professional development and growth to a very large extent to the international assignment opportunities that we have had.
But in a world where distributed work may become the norm, we also want to understand what will happen to the nature, duration, and purpose of international assignments.
Together with our colleague, Julian Dalzell from the University of South Carolina, we're undertaking a study on the future of expatriation.
And we'd value your contribution. You can participate in this important study by completing a simple 10-minute questionnaire.
Access the questionnaire by typing in your browser tinyurl.com/expert study. That's tinyurl.com/expert study. You can also find the link here on Ed's website next to this video.
Thank you for joining us in this study. In return for your contribution, we'll provide you with a copy of our research.
And of course, you'll be invited to an exclusive webinar hosted by Ed, where we will share our findings right here on Global Business News.
And so please go to tinyurl.com/expat study. Take the survey so that we can better understand the future of expatriation.
Something that's really neat is that the Bridge School partners with various organizations to provide learning for their students. For example, we partner with a major ballet company, and we are able to enroll several of their students into our school. So now not only is the student able to participate in a school and have a seamless transition while they're very active in their ballet career, but now they have other dancers that are with them that are doing some of the same courses. So it's almost becoming a camaraderie where they're taking similar courses, they're working together on their ballet, and really being able to form this great partnership with these organizations to provide a needed service. A lot of times there are student athletes who will spend hours and hours at the gym or at the basketball courts, wherever it is. And if they're attending a traditional school, they're in school from 8 to 3. They get a quick snack, and then they're at the gym for 3 to 4 hours in the evening. Coming to us and having that partnership, they're able to break that up throughout the day. They can have a morning practice, get some schooling in, have an afternoon practice, finish their schooling in the evening. So there's that flexibility. And additionally, if there are tournaments or performances, it's fantastic because if there's a week where they have shows straight through, they can take that week off of learning and then pick back up when they're done. So it offers this great flexibility. And for the program owners of these sports leagues, it is a win-win situation for them because they see this need. They see this need that their students need to make sure that they are obtaining the grades necessary to be successful adults in our country and in other countries. But it provides them an environment where they can be successful at both.
So in the book, there's like a ladder or some kind of graphic that.
Yeah, there's a graphic of that in the book, in both books actually. It looks like this. Can you see it?
Well, vaguely, but I get it. Okay.
It's a y-axis, x-axis.
Yeah.
Kind of graph.
Okay. So what page is that graphic on?
Well, this graphic's in the Thriving from A to Z book, which is it's on page 2. Shift into Thrive, it's talked about and it's in presentations I do, but the literal graphic is not in that book. It's talked about. The 3 phases are talked about, and they start at really in the very beginning, first chapter, but the literal graphic's not in there.
Okay, good. So now, so you have Shift into Thrive, which means making adjustments in what, emotional intelligence?
It's actually, I would say it's more than emotional intelligence, maybe depending on how you defined it, but it's always, I've seen it more defined as kind of and I don't like the word softer skills, but the softer skills is emotional intelligence. But these strategies really get into building your support networks as one, clarifying your purpose. So do you have a vision, a mission, and goals? Building self-awareness, which is the development piece, enhancing self-care, which gets into health, both mental and physical well-being. Actualize strengths. So are you maximizing what you do well? And then broadening coping skills. And enhanced self-care, I mean, that's a key one because it includes physical, emotional, and spiritual well-being. Spiritual being defined very broadly. For some folks, like for me, spirituality comes from being out in nature. For some folks, it's religion. There's a lot of ways to be and to feel and to access your spirituality.
So I want to zero in on the coping.
Yeah.
Coping skills. Mm-hmm. So this is the opposite. That concept is the opposite of getting pissed off and throwing things.
Or at least learning once you get pissed off and throw things and learn from it. But yeah, I know the intent would be is are you aware of your triggers? Sometimes maybe that comes from journaling. That may come from, if you are triggered, stepping back and thinking, why am I triggered? What's done it? Typically, it's never a first time, right? I mean, our triggers are our triggers for our life, typically, unless something dramatic happens to change it. So it's really becoming and tuning into your triggers. And then how do you become aware of that's happening? And then how do you manage when it does? Is it that pause? Is it that taking those deep breaths? What is it? And really the hardest part can be becoming aware of it. What really, being honest and becoming aware of what really sets me off, what triggers me, and how do I manage that? But it's also managing the difficulties. It's not just it's your emotions, but it's things like negative self-talk. Especially for women, that can be really a trap where if something happens, it's they caused it, they did it. And so how do you become aware of how your negative self-talk is managing you versus you managing it and get yourself out of that place?
So this must be in all of your books, not just in one book.
Shift into Thrive and Thriving from A to Z focus specifically on this. My first 3 books, because I was always in leading leadership organizations and Fortune 500 companies, my first 3 books are all about leadership and how do you pick the best leadership programs, which really does sort of tie into this. But specifically, these 2 books are on building resilience and thriving.
So how much of this training is done or had pre-pandemic
Yeah.
within Fortune 1000 companies? And how much of this kind of training was done, I guess, by the C-suite who said, hey, got to teach our line managers these tricks.
Yeah.
That didn't come naturally. I mean, in some companies, sure, because people were trained or they went to Harvard or something, and they taught all this stuff 100 years ago. But nobody else ever learned it other than by trial and error, though. But now it's becoming structure.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I presented this at a lot of conferences, and I've got people, both men and women, hearing it for the first time. In organizations doing leadership training, you'll hear sometimes that gets more to what I would say are the common soft skills, like listening skills, and things that aren't soft skills, like giving performance reviews, giving feedback, those sorts of things. Clarify purpose, having your vision, mission. I'd say that's more common in corporations as far as leadership skills. And there is a focus on self-awareness. When you think, like you said, you think about, whether it's the MBTI or the DISC, or I'm certified in a zillion of them. Those tools have been used for years in organizations to help build self-awareness. So I'd say those are some things that are fairly common. Not so much maybe the enhanced self-care. Maybe organizations are headed a little bit more that way about wellness, physical, mental, and spiritual, but probably not as high on the list as some of the others.
So the new book coming out in the fall, Anti-Sexist. So is this the new world of Me Too?
I'd say it includes Me Too, but it gets us back to basics. What I have found is that the book is targeted at men and women, all ages. So, I mean, we've got to do this together. But what I have found is that, unfortunately, even things like whether it's sexism or racism or whatever there seems to be a flow where for a while it'll be a hot topic and people will be focused and think it's important, and then it goes away. And then it becomes, then 10, 20 years later, it's a hot topic. I mean, you can look at women's issues and see that trend up and down over the years. And what I've seen is I feel right now even with the Me Too movement, there's really less of a focus on the basics around just simply biases and the differences that occur, and just around simple things that happen day to day. There's less of a focus. I think so this book is really about getting back to basics, and the subtitle is Challenge Sexism. So the book really outlines activities, men or women, when you see sexism happen. One, what does it look like? And then how do you challenge it? The other is champion women's rights. So once you've challenged sexism that you see daily, small or big things, how do you champion women's rights? What does it take? How can you do it on a small level, big level? How do you do that? And then the last one is really create change, make the world different for women and girls, and that's the outcome. So the book follows. There's topics about different ways you see bias, but then it gives you specific actions and plans and questions around those three topics. How do you challenge it? How do you champion it? And how do you create change by what you do?
Wow, brilliant. So. Sexist in women. I mean, that's like a muscular Me Too.
So the way I see it is the patriarchy is a system, and both men and women can support that system, just like men can be feminists, right? Men and women can be feminists. Both men and women can support the patriarchy. In fact, when I talk with women, they say one of the things that bothers them the most is when there are women out there who are themselves gender biased against women. and really supporting the patriarchy, supporting misogyny. And so both men and women can be sexist. And the book deals with that.
Well, it's challenging.
It is, because oftentimes, just like anything, men or women both may not even realize what they're doing. It becomes, like I said, it's before we're even born. It can be so ingrained. I'm not giving everybody an out saying everything's unconscious bias, but there is unconscious bias. But the key is you can't get rid of your biases. You can only learn from them and manage them. You'll always have them. And so what you've got to do is be open to saying, yes, I'm biased. Yes, I'm sexist. I'll say it. Yes, I'm sexist. There are times I am definitely sexist. But I try to be aware, and I try to realize it and manage it. When it happens in my mind, I'm thinking something I know is sexist. I'm like, Lynn, stop that. Where's that coming from?
So one of the lines that jumped out off the page in your LinkedIn profile is not a plea, but a suggestion that men should buy your books, or any book written by a woman. And so why don't you tell us about that idea?
Yeah, well, just like anything, I mean, people often don't realize how ingrained it is. You find it everywhere. And so I love in my research, I just love finding other researchers who have done research on things that people may not even realize are sexist. So this article had researchers that had done research and showed that the stats show that men are not typically are not as prone to buy books written by women, fiction or nonfiction. Buy and read, you're going to assume read, I guess. I don't know how you measure that, but buy, at least they can measure. Aren't as prone, and women actually, it's about 50, more like 50%. I think for men it was somewhere in the teens percentage-wise. And so the question becomes, once again, why not? And I think you can backtrack all of that to, once again, gender biases, sexism, just whether it's unconscious or not, men thinking this book is not going to be as valuable, this information's not going to be as valuable because it's written by a woman. And once again, it may be unconsciously thinking it, but obviously it happens. The numbers show it happens. It's not that we all write bad books, right? I mean, a lot of these women are bestsellers, but they're bestsellers to women. And the other thing I'm going to say is men might say, oh, well, it's because women write all those romance books. Well, no, I mean, there's a lot of there's as good a mysteries as mysteries written by men. There's as good a nonfiction as nonfiction written by men. So yeah. So it's just another example in our day-to-day lives that we may not even think about. How does it show up? So the next time you go to a bookstore or you go on Amazon or wherever you go, and you go to buy a book, think, well, has a woman written a book from a man? Has a woman written about this topic? Or should I look for a woman who writes similar fiction or nonfiction, right? And see. Because the impact to us of that is, once again, men won't become as aware and in tune to kind of women's thinking and how women approach issues.
Got it. Fascinating. So do you have a website, or you just want to focus in on your LinkedIn page?
Well, LinkedIn is great. I do have a website. I'm in the process of updating it with the new book, but it's schmidtleadership.com. But LinkedIn profile is also good. I also have an author's page on Facebook under Lynn Schmidt, and I am also on Instagram, which is mainly my photographs, though I tie it to thriving because a lot of what I do with my photographs and travel is about, it builds resilience. And then I'm also on Twitter, all under Lynn Schmidt, Lynn M. Schmidt.
Yeah, and which of those media works best for you?
They're all different. I mean, I like LinkedIn from reaching out and to the folks in the business world, and my books apply to them as well. But I also, and also it gets to age range, because they say Facebook is more a little bit of a more 50-ish and up kind of crowd, even though others are there. Twitter, Instagram is like a 30-ish, 40-ish kind of crowd. So You know, they all kind of seem to have different purposes.
So I haven't done anything other than, although I have accounts with all those and a couple of other Slack things, but I don't know how to deal with it. But I live on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
And it's fabulous for my purposes, and that's how we found each other, I think.
Yeah, I think LinkedIn is great.
Yeah.
I mean, when I was writing, I have a book on talent management scorecards, and when I was writing that, my books all contain most of my books, my upcoming book and Shift into Thrive, all contain also essays written by women themselves. So once again, it's about giving voice. So for my talent management scorecard book, I found people to write stories about how they measured their leadership development through LinkedIn. So it's a great resource, I think, as well, for many things.
Well, I welcome you to come back when your new book comes out. Thanks for being on Global TV Talk Show, Dr. Lynn Schmidt.
Thank you. It was great to be here.
Thank you. Nice meeting you.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you for joining us in the meeting room at Global TV Talk Show.
Have a wonderful day, and stay safe.